Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Consciousness Unleashed podcast with a new paradigm shaman, Bonnie Serratore, and I'm your co host, Cynthia. We have a very different episode today because we've had one before where we talked about the Beyond Foundations program, but we covered all the modules in one episode. But today we're going to be covering only one module in particular, and it's one that is an add on that Bonnie decided to do almost at the end of the current program that's going on. And this episode is about sexual trauma. And so I have some questions for you, Bonnie. First off, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Glad to talk about sexual trauma.
Yeah, it's very important. And you have taught a lot of your students before modules that were, I guess, part of foundations, but you also had like another class that was separate from that. So it's something that you have a lot of experience teaching other healers how to deal with this in a very particular way. So, Bonnie, when you initially had the Beyond Foundations program idea and you introduced it to the community, it was the 5 modules. And I'll remind people what those modules are. Number one was the Discarnates. Number two was past lives. Number three was interdimensional interference. Number four was soul retrieval. And number five, which is currently ongoing, and you can still purchase for Dark Force interference. But you decided to have a sixth module that you didn't announce before, and you just decided to do this one. And this one's on sexual trauma. So, Bonnie, what was your inspiration, and why did you decide to now put this one into the current Beyond Foundations program instead of like maybe waiting for the next?
Well, what happens for me, Cynthia, is I get a knowing, like it drops in and I have an awareness and I can feel there's a certain frequency, feelings and sensations that I get when I'm knowing something, when I'm supposed to do something. That's originally what happened. Okay. So I was teaching this program and we had the segments like that you mentioned, but then I kept having this drop in that we needed to do the sexual trauma. And I've taught sexual trauma before. We took it off our website, but it's a program that we did have before. And so now I want to bring that in because, like I would have to say probably 80% of the population has had some kind of sexual trauma of some sorts or another. Okay. And when you're dealing with that kind of energy, it really can affect one's well-being and it affects your life. So I just felt like when I got that knowing, I was like, okay, I guess I'm meant to bring this in. And that's how I do stuff. I get the knowing and that's what I do.
And I do want to mention to people who may not know, you did teach this as a separate thing too, and it was specifically for healers who wanted to learn how to do this and not only get their own healing from their own sexual trauma and even, past life sexual traumas as well, but they would learn the ways through the Serratore method on how you actually are able to clear it. So, do you want to talk about some of those components that are very specific to your way of healing sexual trauma, Bonnie?
Yeah. So I want to just share something else. So I've been doing workshops since I can remember 94, maybe before that. Anyway, I started doing oh no, not in 1990. Okay, I started doing these kind of workshops in the 1990. Okay, and what was happening is what I discovered in that was when we would have an in-person intensive, when someone when we were dealing with the sexual trauma, what I would do is I would have a perpetrator take on the energy of the violator and literally put that energy on the victim. The victim, your natural reaction is to start fighting, screaming, but because I understood how to do our emotional work, it was about the surrendering to the experience. Okay, so I learned through direct experience how to work with sexual trauma, how to literally clear it out. So when we were done, even though there was a memory of the sexual trauma, there was no more shame. There was no more feelings like there's something wrong with you. You were no longer crippled sexually, all the different things that can happen to someone. People were liberated and was like, yeah, it happened, but it was no longer ruling and ruining their lives. Okay. So it was all that direct hands-on healing and the profound shifts that would happen for people, So in our work in the Serratore method, even if we're not coming in person and having it, unravel in that way because of what we do. In a sense, we're bypassing the need to go through the emotion because on some level your soul has had the emotion, it just didn't surrender to it. But what happens is we can literally pull out the emotional energy of the perpetrator. Okay, we pull out the actual frequencies of that perpetrator, not just the emotions, but their soul energy. And there's all the different steps and components to bring someone back into wholeness as though it never happened, okay, which is awesome. But basically, what we're doing is we're getting all the pieces. Now, there can be discarnates in there. There will be discarnates in there, okay? We got to get all the discarnates that were victimized. We got to get the discarnates that are also the perpetrator violators. Okay, then we got to get all the emotion out, all the emotion. There's all kinds of emotions that happen. Someone will feel that feeling like the loss of innocence, the loss of purity, their rights being taken away. There's all just the fact that you're being violated against your will. It's all this intense emotion. So, we're clearing out emotions. We're clearing out all these energy frequencies that are disrupting your well-being. And as these things get lifted up and out, it's like everything changes. The body changes, how you hold yourself changes, your emotions, your beliefs, your, even your programming, everything shifts and changes. But what's happening is you're really coming back to your authentic true self, which is that pure divine consciousness that we are.
What are some ways that past life sexual trauma can affect our present day life?
For example, let's just say in a past life, you've got a violation happening. That perpetrator energy will stay in the victim's body until it's released. Okay, so you can have the soul energy of the perpetrator, you can have essence, the emotions of that perpetrator, and anytime you violate someone against their will, especially if they're really young children, it affects the person on many, many different emotional levels. Okay, so there can be the severe trauma of the intensity of physical pain, okay, where your body's literally harmed, whether it's through the act itself or the body gets hurt or beat up or something happens, threatened by the perpetrator. So you have that kind of trauma. You have the trauma of the frequency of the actual penetration, if that, in fact, there was violations sexually in affecting either men or women, where the body has been abused, touched, whatever. You have all of that trauma. It affects you emotionally, mentally. Okay, it goes through all these emotional energies, traumas. You can get PTSD from that, and all these energies, if you don't process what you went through, okay, if you don't go through the emotions of any kind of trauma, sexual trauma, that energy doesn't leave. It stays in your consciousness. And it comes in what I call your soul imprint, which is your own consciousness of that soul that you are. And it gets carried over. So when you come into the world, because you have that trauma, here's the deal. The soul is trying to unravel and know itself in all ways. And in order to do that, it has to stay in the body, awake and aware, going through these emotions, unless you're getting stuff lifted out of you like what we do, with our work, with the Serratore Method. So what happens is now you have this trauma that you didn't unravel. So what's going to happen is that trauma is going to be like a magnet, and it's going to be drawing to you the same kinds of energies, the same kinds of people, the same kinds of events that happened to you in the past, because you're trying to unravel it. So you'll be recreating all these traumas repeatedly until you heal this trauma. Okay. But it affects you in so many different ways. But what happens from past lives is whatever you didn't unravel, whatever you didn't heal and clear, it's going to be in you now, and you'll be recreating it. That's the biggest piece right there. Recreating a trauma that you've already done in the past, and now you're going to do it again and again and again until you clean it up.
Bonnie, I've heard you talk about before where if you have a reaction to something, even if you haven't experienced it in this lifetime, but let's say you heard about it or you saw, witnessed it in certain ways, maybe on movies or TV, that, and you have a reaction that you probably have experienced it in past lives. So even if people may feel this is not a module for them, if they want to, find healing through the module and not just learn how to heal it in others or themselves, what would you say about that? Because if they had a big reaction to something like that, that's in them and it's causing other types of problems in their life as well. So do you want to talk about that?
Yes, it's very common for people to not have been abused, sexually abused in their life, in this lifetime, and yet they're having a reaction to somebody else, hearing about it from somebody else. And Cynthia, it's really true. Everyone at some point in their soul's evolution has experienced sexual trauma. Everyone. Everyone has been a violator, perpetrator of sexual trauma to someone else, and we've been victim to that. So if you're alive, you got sexual trauma, whether it's from this lifetime or another lifetime. So what happens is like you got this past life trauma and you didn't have, you're not remembering, nothing happened in this lifetime, but something in you is just like, wow, it just doesn't, I don't understand it. It's like, how can I feel this way? Well, it's because of the carryover. It's because of you have experienced it. You just don't remember it because it's buried in the subconscious, as well as, these traumas are carried over as well in the chakra system. So that sexual energy, trauma, things of that nature on those lower first and second chakras. It affects the heart chakra as well. We start shutting down. We don't feel safe in the world. We can't trust anybody. Okay. All of these can be symptoms of someone who's been sexually abused, whether this lifetime or another. But yes, it gets carried over. Here's the thing, with all traumas of any kind, if you don't go through it, knowing it fully, opening your heart to it and going through what it was like for you, the trauma of it, the horror of it, the intensity of it, the crisis of it, you will carry that over and it never leaves your body until you know it. This is why, what we do in the Serratore Method is we are literally releasing and clearing these traumas, that the only other way to get them out is to know them and going through them. There's lots of modalities claiming, that they're going to clear stuff out, but do they really? In my experience, I haven't seen it yet. Doesn't mean there isn't something out there, but basically, the Serratore Method literally releases all the components, all the energies, all the frequencies, foreign energy that are not you. The carryover from past lives is shifted and changed and released and cleared as well. So anyone I'm not joking, if you're alive, you've had sexual trauma, whether you had it in this lifetime or another, and it will affect your ability to be in the world. It causes shame, horrible shame, okay? It causes a feeling of regret. It causes feeling that there's something wrong with you, okay? You're bad. You're not wanted. You don't belong. You don't matter. You're not loved. All of these emotions are getting activated because of some kind of sexual trauma that's happened in past lives.
And I do want to let people know who are watching this, and maybe they haven't taken the other Beyond Foundations modules yet, and you're interested in this one. Bonnie in the sessions, she does take demos, and so you actually can be chosen for a demo, and Bonnie will do the healing work on you, and that will, of course, help everybody in the class to learn how to do what Bonnie does with people. So, do you want to talk about that component of it as well? Because I think that's one of the biggest draws to your Beyond Foundation sessions.
Yeah. Okay. So it's more. So Cynthia, it's even more than that. So even just being with me in the class, let's just say I've chosen someone, because that's, I'll get the knowing and I'll do an unraveling. So not only I'm giving you information, I'm telling you what I'm thinking, what I'm asking, I'm telling you what I'm tracking, what I'm finding, I'm telling you how I'm unraveling and clearing. Okay, so you're getting a training, you're understanding and learning how I'm doing what I do. And the person that's getting the clearing, you're going to witness them change right before your very eyes, guaranteed. Okay, when we're done, they'll be speaking of what they're noticing feels different. But what's important, what I think is really awesome, is anyone in the class is going to get the benefit of the clearing, because as I'm clearing this person, everybody else is also being cleared of the energy that I'm working with. So everyone gets changed. So not only are you learning how to do the work and getting work done on you just by being a participant, but then there's the potential to be the actual, the person I'm actually doing the demonstration on. But anybody present is going to get cleared and healed. It's awesome.
So this module on sexual trauma, which is module 6 of the current Beyond Foundations program, is starting in July. So if those of you who are listening want to definitely join, I'll leave links below and you can see the schedule of which dates in July. So you can leave those open. So Bonnie, are there any last words you want to say to end this episode?
For the sexual trauma, I mean, I just know how my life was affected because I had major sexual trauma. Okay, not just from one person, but from, three perpetrators, three violators of severe sexual trauma. I have to tell you, I was like the shattered kid, the one like I couldn't function in the world. Okay, I had so much shame. It was so intense, people, that I couldn't even like, as a kid, I was just a kid. I didn't have any breasts, but I had to hide all the time. I had to be covered all the time. And it was just a horrible feeling. It's a sick, horrible feeling that was never gone. Okay. And it destroys people. And I was destroyed, shattered, broken. Okay. And to come out of that and to be, feeling like, wow, it's like, it's good to be here. I'm happy to be alive. And there's no shame and there's no regret. There's no fear around, sexuality and things of that nature. It's liberating. So, if you're dealing with anything around sexuality, it's like, clean it up, people, because it can. That's the thing, is you can heal, you can clear things up and start having a life that's no longer shame based, or where you just feel so bad within. And it's, so all of that's gone. So, that sexual, to me, is like one of the biggest issues on our planet. It's everywhere. And clean it up so people can live free and have happiness and joy in their lives and be healthy sexual humans, rather than messed up where you're traumatized and doing bad things to other people, or, where you're just totally locked up and frozen, don't have a life. So get liberated, open up your life, open up your heart, be free.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, for this discussion. And thank you everyone for listening. Once again, all the links to everything we talked about today is in the description below, including links to purchase the whole program as well. So those of you who want to also purchase everything, not just the sexual trauma module, but I'll leave links for the whole program as well. A lot of it is going to be related to what Bonnie will do in this module 6, because she'll be clearing out the Discarnates and maybe even implants. There's all sorts of things that come up during any type of healing. So it's good to know all the different components of that as well. Thank you so much again, Bonnie. And thank you, everyone.